On the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, even the usually Trump sycophantic Piers Morgan was visibly fed up and called out Donald Trump. Piers Morgan Uncensored episodes, if you look at his writings for the New York Post, his appearances on Fox News, his Twitter page, it's very obvious he grades Trump on a curve. Donald Trump and the Trump administration for their cruelty, their lack of respect for due process, and their dishonesty when it came to the unlawful deportation of Kilar Abrego Garcia.
Even Trump's biggest fan, Piers Morgan, is jumping ship. On Bill Maher's show, the British host who usually kisses Trump's orange butt finally lost it over the case of Kilar Abrego Garcia, a guy Trump's team deported and now refuses to bring back, despite the Supreme Court saying they have to. This isn't just some immigration spat, it's the Justice Department literally ignoring the highest court in America. Even Judge Paula Zennis is fed up, demanding daily updates because Trump's people keep making excuses. When even kiss-ass Piers Morgan thinks you've gone too far, you know it's bad. When you're famous for backing Trump through thick and thin, but suddenly you're calling him out on national TV, people notice. That's exactly what happened with Piers Morgan, the British journalist who spent years defending Trump like he's getting paid by the word.
The key problem with this is the lack of due process, and it's coming back to haunt the administration. Because when you get a guy like this who, according to a ruling in a court in 2019, and let's not pretend that Donald Trump can't pick the phone up to the president of El Salvador. Of course he can. They're paying millions of dollars to facilitate these guys being put in.
Morgan's been Trump's unofficial PR guy through scandals that would sink any normal politician's career. He's battled Trump critics on Twitter, made excuses for his behavior, and generally acted like Trump's personal media bodyguard. But something unusual happened when Morgan appeared on Bill Maher's show recently, the man who defended Trump through 34 felony counts, hush money payments to porn stars, and classified documents stuffed in Mar-a-Lago bathrooms suddenly found his breaking point. And surprise, surprise, it wasn't any of the major scandals that have dominated headlines. Instead, it was the Kilar Abrego Garcia case that finally made Morgan snap.
Was not supposed to be deported back to El Salvador because of the risk to his life from other gangs. We haven't heard from this. We don't know where he is in this prison. Is he alive? The key problem with this is the lack of due process, and it's coming back to haunt the administration. Because when you get a guy like this who, according to a ruling in a court in 2019, and let's not pretend that Donald Trump can't pick the phone up to the president of El Salvador. Of course he can. They're paying millions of dollars to facilitate these guys being put in.
This is a guy who previously nodded along with Trump's harshest immigration policies and defended border control tactics that had most human rights organizations screaming. But on Maher's show, Morgan's tone took a dramatic 180-degree turn. He didn't mince words either, calling out the Trump administration for cruelty, a lack of respect for due process, and flat-out dishonesty in handling Garcia's case. Morgan seemed genuinely disturbed that the administration would disregard Garcia's right to due process, something he called an existential threat to the man's life. What really seemed to get under Morgan's skin was how the Trump team flipped off the Supreme Court. Morgan pointed out that the highest court in the land unanimously ruled that people facing deportation have a right to due process, essentially ordering the Trump administration to comply with a lower court's decision on Garcia's return. But instead of respecting the ruling, the administration made excuses and acted like they couldn't control the situation.
Donald Trump, as Piers Morgan and others have noted, couldn't just pick up the phone and either bargain with or demand that Bukele, who is the president of El Salvador, return Kilar Abrego Garcia.
The whole Supreme Court unanimously said, so let's hope that happens.
Yeah. And they said he has rights, habeas corpus rights.
Yeah.
This puts Morgan in the growing club of former Trump defenders who've reached their personal enough is enough moment. But unlike those who jumped ship over personal insults or legal troubles, Morgan's criticism hits at something more fundamental: the idea that ignoring Supreme Court orders threatens the foundation of American democracy itself. And here's the kicker: the Garcia case is even worse than most people realize. The details of what's happening make Morgan's criticism look tame by comparison, which we'll get to in a minute.
Here's what to know about the case. The Trump administration has conceded that it mistakenly deported him, quote, because of an administrative error, but maintains it cannot bring him back because he is in Salvadorian custody.
That minute has arrived, and what's happening with Kilar Abrego Garcia isn't just some paperwork mix-up. It's a full-blown constitutional crisis where the White House is essentially giving America's highest court the middle finger. When all 9 justices, yes, even the Trump-appointed ones, agree on something, and the administration still says, nah, we're good, we're witnessing something unprecedented. So who is this Garcia guy that has the Supreme Court and White House in a standoff? He's a man who was deported by the Trump administration, but the Supreme Court unanimously ruled he deserved due process first. This wasn't some split 5-4 decision where liberal justices barely outvoted conservatives. We're talking about a 9-0 ruling where even justices like Alito, Thomas, and Barrett all agreed that Garcia's constitutional rights were violated. The legal principle couldn't be more basic. Even non-citizens have constitutional rights to due process. It's literally Constitution 101. The Supreme Court basically told the administration, bring this man back because you deported him illegally.
Quote, I'm not asking for state secrets, Zennis said after Ensign told her he didn't have basic details on where Abrego Garcia is. Quote, I'm asking a very simple question. Where is he? Ordered the Justice Department to provide daily updates on what the administration is doing to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, but it remains unclear whether the reports would prove satisfactory to either the court or the lawyer.
Straightforward, right? Apparently not for Trump's Justice Department. Instead of complying, Trump's lawyers have been playing a ridiculous game of hot potato with Judge Paula Zennis. During court hearings, Justice Department attorney Drew Ensign repeatedly stonewalled the judge, claiming Garcia is in Salvadoran custody, but offering zero details about efforts to bring him back. Judge Zennis wasn't having it, snapping, "The record as it stands is your clients have done nothing to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia." She was so fed up with the stonewalling that she ordered the Justice Department to provide daily updates in the form of sworn statements from someone with actual knowledge of what steps they're taking. "We're not going to slow walk this," she warned, clearly sensing the administration was doing exactly that. Meanwhile, Trump publicly claimed, "If the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do that. I respect the Supreme Court." But his actions tell a completely different story. His Justice Department continues making excuses while doing nothing to comply with the court's order. This isn't just bureaucratic incompetence. It's a deliberate test of whether the executive branch needs to listen to the judicial branch at all. It's Trump asking, "What happens if I just don't follow the Supreme Court's orders?" The answer should terrify anyone who cares about our system of government. So here we are, folks, a genuine constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. When Piers Morgan, Trump's longtime media buddy, is hitting the panic button, you know we're in deep trouble. Judge Zennis wasn't messing around when she demanded daily updates, basically saying, "We're not going to slow walk this," because she recognized what's really happening. This isn't some boring paperwork mishap. It's a deliberate attempt to obstruct the judicial process, the very foundation of our legal system. The balance of power is teetering while the Trump administration quietly tests how far they can push before anyone stops them. What's next? A president who just ignores courts whenever it's convenient. That's not democracy. That's something much scarier.